Gamera, Guardian of the Universe, has not had the best decade or so. With a middling series revival on Netflix, the chances of a full-blown film revival seems to be low, even as the MonsterVerse thrives in theaters and high-grade television spin-offs. But what if Gamera was part of this successful universe? What if Gamera, specifically his Heisei incarnation, was part of the MonsterVerse? So to set the stage, I do want to stress that for this what if, I want to keep Gamera, at least his 90s incarnation, which I'll be using here, as close to his origin and the films as possible. I won't be including Legion or Iris, as I want this series to be centered as much as possible on Gamera. Though, maybe with enough support, maybe a few likes or comments in the comment section, I'll do a what if for a versus matchup featuring Legion or Iris. Pick a monster, maybe like Monster X or something, and we'll see how they do if they were to ever cross paths. Another quick change I'm going to be doing is bumping up his weight to about 80,000 tons. This is just to make sure he's not getting tossed around, because if I kept his weight, he'd be about as heavy as wet tissue paper compared to his competition. Final quick note is that I'll be keeping Gamera separate from already established MonsterVerse lore, so he won't be like a secret titan that's already been in the universe. But if you do want a great video that does incorporate Gamera into the already established universe, I would recommend Kaijutopia, checking out Tom's video on that subject, which you could probably see somewhere around here. With those caveats addressed, let's dive on in. We will start this what if not in 2014 or 1999, but thousands of years prior, past the primordial age, past the time of Ghidorah's arrival, to when man and monster lived together. To cleanly incorporate Gamera, I'd simply use the destroyed civilization we see in 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters. Perhaps in this universe, the ancestors to the Iwi were able to advance technologically thanks to the Titans, instead of trying to enslave them. I mean, we see complex architecture and gravity control, so maybe the ancient Iwi figured out how to genetically cultivate their own titans. Whether for war, in reverence of their gods, the motivation doesn't really matter. We just need the ancient Iwi to accidentally create something that evolves out of their meager control. Titanus Umbra Mali, aka the Gyaos. Their creations, far more ravenous and powerful than they could ever foresee, turn upon their creators. Ancient humanity is doomed, but not only that, having the Gyaos appear in the MonsterVerse is a far more catastrophic event than in Gamera's own Heisei timeline because of one key difference: food. See, the Gyaos in the Heisei universe were essentially beaten not by Gamera, but by their own ravenous hunger. They consumed most life until their numbers and hunger banished the species to starvation and hibernation. That type of scenario is difficult to repeat with an entire hollow earth now open to them, filled with monstrous titans to eat or caverns to reproduce within. This is no quick battle, but a drawn-out war, probably the first Titan war on a global scale. It would take every Titan, from Scylla to Shimo to Mothra to the legendary Godzilla himself, to even compete with this flying horde, but they would not be fighting alone. The Kongs, humanity's protectors, would also be able to lend a hand, but in this fight, they are completely outmatched. As ground-based beasts with little armor, the sonic scalpel from the highly agile aerial foes should be able to slice through them rather easily. Seeing their guardians fall one by one, the Iwi desperately forge a monster to right their past wrongs. Prototype after prototype gives way to a true protector, Gamera, who immediately attracts the attention of one enraged alpha. So you're probably asking, does Gamera defy Godzilla? Do the two come to blows? Is this going to be a Guardian of the Universe versus the legendary alpha? And the answer is no. First up, in a theoretical fight, which I want to stress would not happen, Godzilla has an immense edge here. Assuming Godzilla has been around for tens of thousands, if not millions of years, besting threats like Ghidorah already, the sheer amount of experience gives the Alpha a near insurmountable edge. Also, a few years of constant Gyaos warfare would have forced this Godzilla to evolve in unforeseen ways. Thicker armor to deal with the sonic scalpel, for example. This may sound strange, but think of how much Godzilla grew in strength from 2014 to his last appearance in Godzilla x Kong due to all the events of the films, the comics, and the shows. The gap in strength is just too vast to guess, but it's good enough that we know that he probably can beat Gamera. Gamera, on the flip side, freshly born, would recognize immediately he can't win this fight. Also, there is no evidence to support Gamera would even want to become an alpha. His goal, as seen in the Heisei films, is to stop any threat that destabilizes the world. Even if he were to kill Godzilla, it would just create chaos, so Gamera would ultimately bow, but that does not mean he would not fight. Hey everyone, real brief intermission, but I noticed a lot of you guys aren't subscribed to the main channel. Hitting that subscribe button would really help out, so if you can do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Enough of that though, let's get back to the what if. Gamera would be the guardian that those crafted him sought him to be. Flying across the Earth and Hollow Earth to kill Gyaos would at first set off Godzilla, very much like Kong did when he left Skull Island. But as crimson bodies begin to pile up, I don't think Godzilla's outward hostility would remain. Even if the Iwi, the living connection between the two titans, dies, Godzilla and Gamera's goals are the same, balance. And as Gamera sticks to just killing Gyaos, I don't think Godzilla's ego, because to be an alpha your ego has to be at least a little bit inflated, would demand the Terrapin's destruction for disobeying him. If titans like Scylla, Rodan, or Tiamat can turn against Godzilla and he gives them another chance, then Gamera ignoring him to kill Gyaos, he'd probably be fine. And eventually, after maybe a mountain's worth of Gyaos dead, I can see Gamera getting on Godzilla's good side. He wouldn't be equal to Mothra, but on a scale from, let's say, Draconic three-headed tyrant to Moth Guardian, your average titan being at the center, Gamera, just by assisting the Alpha bring back balance to the world, would sit comfortably on the ally side of that spectrum. So as the Gyaos are eventually called to a sufficient degree, forcing them to hibernate until the time is right, where does that leave Gamera? Well, I think he would just enter a deep sleep too, waiting for the day the Gyaos reappear. He may reawaken when something like the war against the Scar King occurs, but small events probably won't stir him from slumber. Two titans brawling would be acceptable noise to hibernate through, which leads me to the biggest issue with this what if, being the butterfly effect. A lot of titans are going to die because of the Gyaos, and that's actually the main problem of doing something like a what if in this scenario. For instance, what if Kong's ancestors are killed by a Gyaos? Or the Scar King dies to a random Gyaos, meaning no Scar King war, meaning Shimo is technically free? There's also the impact on the humans at the surface. When the Gyaos are topside, the chances of them wiping out a good chunk of ancient humanity is pretty high, meaning this world would look vastly different from our own. In the ancient world, for instance, humanity's roots can be traced back to a few rivers like the Nile in Egypt, the Yellow River in China, or the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Iraq. If the Gyaos wipe out any of these cradles of civilization, so too goes the cultures which were birthed from these cradles. Imagine a world without China, for instance, and you can quickly see how history spirals out of control. So this is like the main reason why I did this part instead of just throwing Gamera into the year 1995 and calling it a day. There is so much history that would change from Gamera just being incorporated into the MonsterVerse, including his arch rival. Incorporating the both of them faithfully would basically throw a massive monkey wrench into the entire history of the MonsterVerse. But that's not fun, so let's partially close this Pandora's box, shall we? Let's say history proceeds normally for humanity with the expected dynasties, empires, and republics across time rising and falling per the norm. The Gyaos do not return in that time, allowing the Titans to fall into myth and legend. While humanity's history remains the same, I do want to stress that this does not mean the Gyaos-Titan War does not have long-lasting ramifications for this universe. The most consequential factor is there would be no Kong-Godzilla war. Scar King War, yes, and he'll be put in his place by Godzilla. But not a general Kong war, as while the species is crafty and powerful, the Gyaos would have singled them out as easy targets with their sonic scalpels. The great apes would be called, forcing the few remaining members of the species to generally retreat into the depths of the Hollow Earth with the Scar King after his banishment, or retreat to the surface on Skull Island. A relatively peaceful few thousand years follows until the year 1995 rolls around, setting the stage for the events of the MonsterVerse films to take place. But more on that next time, as that will conclude this part. But what do you think? Do you think Gamera and Godzilla should have come to blows? Because I sure don't, because Gamera would have died. I'm being honest there. You do not want Gamera to fight Godzilla at this point. He's just too green. If you did enjoy this, leave a like, maybe subscribe to What If Kaiju. I'm trying to grow this channel and all your support helps. But until next time, I'm GrayShot151 and I'll see you all with the next video. Until then, catch y'all later.